Alright guys, roses and patchouli together for an explosive combination. It is a great combination, although probably not as popular as rose and oud, but I really do love that combination of roses and patchouli. I think they work great. The first time I discovered this combination was a fragrance I bought back in 2014 called Rosei Mundi from Profumum Roma. I've got a little bit left in this bottle. This is all the way back to 2014. I think it might even be 2013. Great smelling fragrance from Profumum Roma, but I've acquired a lot more. I've bought a lot more, and I really do enjoy this combination. It's a really great smelling, fantastic combination. So today I've got 11 fragrances featuring this combo. I've also got 4 bonus fragrances after the outro of the combination of rose and patchouli along with oud. So find out about rose and patchouli fragrances coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Yes, today I'm talking about rose and patchouli. A great combination. I think they really do complement one another. I like the combination of the sweet jamminess of the floral touches of the rose along with the earthy, woody, sometimes sparkly combination of patchouli. They just really do wonderful together. Although, as I said, not as many fragrances that feature this combo as there is of rose and oud. And there's also rose and oud and patchouli as well, that's why I'm having the 4 bonus ones after the outro. But I think it's a great solid combo. It smells really great, and I think the 2 notes really do blend beautifully together. Anyway, I'll let you know what they are. Before I do, if this is your first time tuning into the channel and you still haven't subscribed, please click the subscribe button and also click the bell so that you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. How many of you do enjoy this combo? Typically they end up being like a cheaper style fragrance, which I quite like, but some of these are not that. Either way, let's start with number 11. We're going to the house of HERMETICA. This is Patchouli Light right here. This to me is sort of simplistic, also a type of fragrance that you can kind of like smear all over your hands. It's made to soften your hands because there's an oiliness about them. Sort of like Profumum Roma, you can do the same thing. They're a little on the oily side. This, on the other hand, is a little more of a technologically advanced kind of creation, which I'm not going to get into the technicalities. But, you know, it's a fragrance that focuses on patchouli, but lots of rose along with it. And then there's some spices, but there's also sandalwood, there's oakmoss, and iris. It will remind you of Portrait of a Lady, and that is on this list. Stay tuned for that. But it's a little different. I think some of the notes are going in different directions, and you also have some of the notes, not as much as others. It's not as spicy as Portrait of a Lady, but there's spice in there, but it's mostly about the patchouli with the rose, and it's a beautiful combination. And the fact that you can actually spray these fragrances on like this, and you can kind of smear it all over your hand, and it softens your hand, plus you have fragrance. What more can you ask for, right? Anyway, moving on to number 10, going to the house of SISLEY. This is the Suede Orient. I put this one here because it's at the bottom. It's a really great smelling fragrance. I don't think the patchouli is as strong in here as it is in other fragrances. And also, why did I put HERMETICA at number 11? It's not a traditional fragrance. It also kind of hints at Portrait of a Lady, so I put that at the bottom, but I did want to highlight it because it's this unique kind of a oily fragrance. But this is a gorgeous fragrance with lots of rose and saffron with incense, so there's some leathery touches and things like that. There's also a galbanum here, so it's kind of bitter green, a little bit resinous, and then of course lots of aromatics with geranium, patchouli, and sandalwood. A really delicious fragrance, but I just wish there was a little more rose to make it, you know, move up the list further up to the top. But I think the way this is, it's really great. It's also very intense. It is overwhelming with the rose and the incensiness and the aromatic spiciness and leatheriness of the saffron. Just wanted a little more patchouli, but I think the fragrance on its own is great. That's why I've ranked it lower, because it's not a full-on rose and patchouli combo, but smell-wise it's really great. So SISLEY Suede Orient. So number 9, going to the house of Tom Ford. We've got Rose Prick. Do you know this one? This seems to be very no, I shouldn't say that. This is not very popular, or is it? I don't know, because from what I've heard, Tom Ford is launching 3 more rose fragrances in the private blend. 3 together. Or maybe they're going to come up one after another, I don't know. But there's Rose d'Amalfi, Rose de Russie, and then Rose de Chine. 3 different rose fragrances. I'm going to do a video about the anticipation for that. Stick around till tomorrow. But today, I've put Rose Prick at number 9. And it is a kind of a beautiful combination of roses with patchouli. But I feel like the patchouli is not as strong in this, even though it's there, you can totally notice it. And the fact that this has 3 kinds of rose, and so I feel like the rose is overwhelming the patchouli to kind of have that rose and patchouli balance, if that makes sense. So that's why this is here. But either way, it features Turkish rose, Bulgarian rose, May rose, patchouli, Tonka beans, Sichuan pepper, and turmeric. Very unique combination. Yes, it is like a Chypre style once again. It's spicy, it's woody, it's earthy, but lots of rose. Rose Prick at number 9. And as I said, stay tuned tomorrow for my anticipation video for these 3 rose fragrances from Tom Ford. Moving on, at number 8, we've got TIZIANA TERENZI's Porpora. And this, to me, is once again another similar Portrait of a Lady style fragrance, the spiciness. But I feel like this, I prefer Portrait of a Lady more. It depends on who the wearer is. I get more incense with this one than I get rose and patchouli. That's kind of why this is ranked a little lower. But normally I really love this house and I have lots of favorites. But the way I'm ranking this video, I wanted to make sure it's lots of rose and patchouli. And for me, even though there's lots of patchouli here, I get more incense, so it comes off kind of resinous and smoky in comparison to like Portrait of a Lady. And even though Portrait of a Lady also has incense, but I feel like that particular fragrance, it's reversed with the patchouli. There's definitely more patchouli there and rose and less incense. So this features lots of rose, incense, patchouli, myrrh, raspberry, musk, poppy, amber. Yeah, the notes seem similar to Portrait of a Lady, but then there's additional notes in there, and they're also kind of reversed. This actually has myrrh, whereas Portrait of a Lady has benzoin, so they're kind of different notes. I also find this not as sweet as Portrait of a Lady, and I like the sweetness in the other. And then there's also that cinnamon or cloves note in Portrait of a Lady, and this one doesn't seem to have it. But still, close. It's a matter of taste, what you prefer over the other. Still a great fragrance in a different direction a little bit. But either way, Porpora at number 8 for a great rose and patchouli combo. Of course, rose and incense combo as well. Next, going to the house of Juliette Has a Gun, Vengeance Extreme. Do you know this one? This one's definitely a Chypre, very, very much so. It smells like a Chypre style, and I love this combination. Rose and patchouli together here are very prominent. There's lots of rose, Bulgarian rose, and lots of patchouli. And I feel like it's equal. You get both amounts to kind of like cross each other out to smell really equally, and I love this combination. Throw in some vanilla here, white musk, bergamot, and lavender. You have a great, great fragrance. The sad thing is, I don't know the previous fragrance that came before this. I think it's called Lady Vengeance. I'm not 100% sure, so I need to check that one. Does that smell similar to this? Because this is called Vengeance Extreme. The other is called Lady Vengeance. Either way, this to me is really, really a solid release, and I like the combination of the patchouli and the rose in here, and the whole, you know, style of Chypre fragrances. Very, very much so. It's kind of classic and modern at the same time. So Juliette Has a Gun, Vengeance Extreme at number 7. So for this next fragrance, I don't have my bottle because the bottle stopped working, so I had to cut it up and then take the juice out of it. So it's in like a non-distinct bottle, but this is a fragrance from the house of Dior in their private blend, or I shouldn't say private blend, privé collection called Gris Dior. I've got it here in a little atomizer, in a big atomizer, but Gris Dior is a great combination of rose with patchouli. And you know, I also get equal amounts of Oakmoss in here, so the combination once again is really, really satisfying, and also really another Chypre style fragrance. I really like this one a lot. There is a little bit of a bitterness in there, not like this Lady or Vengeance Extreme, whereas this one has sweetness because I think it has vanilla in there. This one doesn't have vanilla. I think the Oakmoss kind of gives it a little more of a bitterness to the fragrance, which I quite like. It's a different take on a Chypre, and I think that this particular fragrance is really, really solid and a little underrated from this particular house or the collection, but a great solid take on rose patchouli with Oakmoss, Bergamot, Cedar, Amber, and Sandalwood. Smells great. It's beautiful. It's oak mossy. It's patchouli. It's very, very earthy, a little leathery, and of course lots of rose. So Dior's Gris Dior. Sorry for my bottle, but sometimes bottles stop working on me. Does that ever happen to you guys? So this particular fragrance I recently featured in a video last week of favorite fragrances from Van Cleef and Arpels. This is Moonlight Patchouli. There's something that I'm thinking in this fragrance reminds me of Midnight Poison, but definitely this is Moonlight Patchouli. And once again, it's another Chypre style fragrance. You know, patchouli rose together. But here they've done a really, really great job with the way this smells. There's a little leathery, buttery suede leather in here. But overall, really, really solid take on the patchouli rose combination, and it really works great. And a couple of you mentioning this was your favorite when I aired the video, the ranked video of the Van Cleef and Arpels fragrances. You were saying you get lots of compliments with this one. You know, patchouli has some of the best trail ever. If you ever are into attracting people with your fragrance, focus on wearing patchouli. If you hate it but you want the attention, get fragrances. Start learning how the fragrance smells. Start, you know, making yourself appreciate patchouli, because it leaves the most amazing trail, and that's what will get you the compliments. But either way, Moonlight Patchouli features patchouli, rose, suede leather, iris, cacao, woods, fruity notes. Yes, there's a little bit of a chocolatey touch here. Light fruits, but woody, and very, very patchouli and rose, lightly leathery. So this is a great scent, Moonlight Patchouli, at number 5. Next up, going to the house of Diptyque. This is Au Capital, this one right here. How many of you is a fan of this one? So this came out early 2020, and I think it's a great fragrance for the house. They're doing some really great things, even though it's still an underrated house, and probably most people like this house for their candles, because they have some amazing, amazing candles. Recently, I've been really enjoying their cypress candle. I'm hoping they would make a fragrance out of it because it smells so good. So good. It's a green kind of woodiness, a little aromatic, light herbal, but such a great smelling fragrance. But moving on to this, Au Capital is another Chypre style fragrance with that rose and patchouli. So it's very, very earthy patchouli, very, very jammy rose. Together it really blends beautifully. This combination is really, really sexy also. There's some spice in here, pink pepper, and light citrusy touches, bergamot, rose, patchouli, or oak moss that's typically found in a Chypre style fragrance. So they've accomplished a great fragrance here, and I think Diptyque does great fragrances, and this really does smell great on me. Some people said when I first started talking about this early last year, before the pandemic, that people thought this was kind of like Portrait of a Lady. I don't get the combination, but maybe people smell things differently. Well, of course they do, and then they're kind of like picking out the rose and patchouli in here and comparing it to the rose and patchouli in Portrait of a Lady. But either way, Au Capital is a great fragrance from Diptyque, and that is that number 4. So speaking of that first fragrance I mentioned early at the video, it's Rosamundi from the house of Profumum Roma. So I bought this in Paris at the Printemps Boutique when I was visiting one year, and I immediately fell in love with it because at the time I hadn't really sampled a lot of Profumum Roma fragrances, and I had sampled the Aquaviva, but this is the first fragrance, and then I bought Aquaviva, and this has been an instant love for me because I love that combination of the rose and patchouli. But this to me, and it's an oilier concentration as well, like you can totally smell, like experience the oiliness, and this is a kind of fragrance you can rub because it's a linear, it's not like top, heart, and base notes broken down. So the reason, that's why you can totally like rub it, and it's also kind of like, you know, softening. It softens your hands. If you don't agree with me about the rubbing thing, this was told to me by the store, the boutique in Rome, their flagship store. They kind of push the whole rubbing thing. But either way, lots of rose with this one. It's jammy, it's syrupy, very, very syrupy. Like it's a syrupy experience. You can totally experience it not only because it's oily itself, but the the way the rose is and the patchouli together. Silky smooth and very, very syrupy, as I said. Rose, patchouli, cedar, vetiver. It's mostly about the rose and patchouli and how they work together, but you'll have some light woody touches and some grassiness. Great scent, Rosamundi from the House of Profumum Roma. I love that one. I love all these fragrances. They're really great, but this is the way I would rank this whole collection. Number 2 is another Tom Ford. Man, Tom Ford already has lots of roses, right? They also have Cafe Rose. I just spoke about Rose Prick, and they're launching 3 roses together. But this is Tom Ford's Noir de Noir. Such a great fragrance. Really, really great. And even though this one does have oud, and I said I was separating the oud, for me this is not about the oud. It's another Chypre style fragrance, but in a kind of dark chocolatey direction. And even though there's no dark chocolate notes mentioned here, the combination creates an accord of like experiencing dark chocolate. But it's mostly rose, patchouli, truffles from under the ground, the kind that's very expensive, that's used in Italian food, or you know, any food that would require this very expensive luxury food item. There's saffron here, there's floral notes, there's vanilla, oud, and oak moss. This is also another early discovery for me, along the same time, or maybe a little after the Rosamundi. And this would garner me many compliments. I wore it so much. I think it's gotten a little weaker now since over the years, but still really great combination of rose and patchouli together. To die for smell. So that's Tom Ford Noir de Noir. Really wonderful fragrance. And of course my number 1 in this list would be Portrait of a Lady. I bought this the very first before all of these. I bought this like late 2012 or early 2013. Instant love. Love the smell. And yeah, it has been reformulated. You can totally smell the changes. It's gotten weaker, but still I think as a smell, it smells pretty good, I think. It's pretty good. It's lots of rose, lots of patchouli, lots of incense, sandalwood, musk, benzoin, cloves, and raspberry. The combination is very intoxicating. That really beautiful trail here, but it's combined with the rose and patchouli. And as I said, compared to Porpora, I get more incense with Porpora, a little less patchouli, but here I get more patchouli, a little less incense, and the combination is very intoxicating. Really delicious. It's resinous, dry down, but there's fruitiness and spices along the way, and some woods. Beautiful fragrance. Portrait of a Lady, number 1, and I think it's one of the best rose and patchouli fragrances, at least in my book. Anyway guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. Have I missed any fragrances? Do you know of any other rose and patchouli fragrances that you would recommend that I should check out? Let me know, put a comment down so I can find out as well. Stick around until after the outro for the 4 additional fragrances that also feature oud. But if you have any questions or comments, please list below. Make sure to stick around tomorrow for the 3 upcoming Tom Ford Rose Fragrances video. Other than that, guys, please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Have a good one. Goodbye. As promised, I've got 4 more fragrances for you that focus on rose and patchouli, but with lots of oud as well. I would call these more of a rose-oud combo with the addition of patchouli. At least that's what I would call it. But we're going to start off first with Montal's Black Oud. I really like this combination because it is, once again, lots of rose with oud, but there's loads of patchouli here as well to create a beautiful marriage of really beautiful notes that work beautifully together. As I said earlier on, rose and oud is probably a lot more common than rose and patchouli, but the combination is great as well, the rose and patchouli. But with the addition of oud as well, or the addition of patchouli if you're referring to rose and oud, makes total sense. This also features musk, labdanum, and some mandarin orange for one beautifully intoxicating fragrance. So Montal Black Oud is the first fragrance I'm talking about. Next, going to the house of Atelier Cologne, Rose Anonyme. How many of you know this one? Once again, it's rose oud patchouli combo, but we're going into kind of more of a fresh take on these notes, and one you can wear in the summer liberally, and you smell fantastic. I've gotten compliments with this when I first started wearing it. I don't wear it as much, but I still wear it every once in a while, and the smell is really great. But the fragrance features rose, oud, patchouli, papyrus, paponax, benzoin, ginger, and bergamot. There is a very fizzy kind of sparkliness here, and I like that because It's very bubbly and vivacious kind of an experience with all these beautiful notes. And in here, the Rose Oud Patchouli work wonderfully together. Rose Anonyme from Atelier Cologne, a wonderful fragrance. This one I have to also mention, it's Rose d'Arabie from the House of Armani. Once again, it's just a beautiful combination of the Rose Oud Patchouli, but with this one, you also have vanilla. So you have 4 notes playing wonderfully together. It's a little spicy, it's a little warm and kind of gooey, syrupy, little ambery, but it's lots of rose, and it's also kind of a combination of jamminess from the rose and dryness from the oud. But then you've got that patchouli thrown in there, and I think the whole entire combination is just beautiful. It will remind you a little of black oud as well, but I think it's a little different, as this one does feature vanilla, and then the Menthol doesn't feature vanilla, but it features kind of a ambery touches from Galbanum. Either way, Armani or Rose d'Arabie is a great fragrance featuring rose, oud, and patchouli. And the last fragrance I'm going to mention as a bonus fragrance is Atelier d'Azur's Rose Omeillade. Another great fragrance, really wonderful here. It's another great combination of rose, oud, patchouli, but this one also has a little bit of a sweet, brown, sugary, almost like immortelle note, and then there's this raspberry fruitiness in here as well. For this one, I find oud not as strong as the patchouli and the rose, but still, it's there. It's there to add this woodiness. And then there's some spiciness here overall. A beautiful, beautiful combination of rose, patchouli, raspberry, oud, with that kind of brown, sugary touch that runs throughout the fragrance. This is Atelier d'Azur's Rose Omeillade, and a beautiful fragrance, and that is the last fragrance I'm going to talk to you about today. Thank you so much for sticking around for the bonuses. Bye-bye.